Hello students, I hope you are doing good, and starting from where we left in the last lecture, so I have already sent you slides for the optical instruments wherein we have covered the human eye, the digital camera, etc. And let's continue with optical instruments, and let's proceed. Okay, the first thing that comes is the simple magnifying glass. So I'm sure all of you have used a magnifying glass, and what exactly it is. So a simple magnifying glass consists of a single converging lens. So lens, we know that we have already covered in the first two lectures of optics, like how a lens is used to converge a beam of light. Fine. Now it is used to increase the apparent size of an object. Now the size of an image formed on the retina depends on the angle subtended by the eye. Fine. So you must have seen people using magnifying glass to view very small letters on a small piece of paper. So magnifying glass is basically that. So this is the image of a magnifying glass, and this is the rays are coming, parallel beam of rays are coming, and it is then focused at this particular point. Fine. So this is very easy. Okay, so now how is this magnified image formed? So as you can see, when an object is placed at the near point, so what is this near point? Near point is about 25 centimeter. So that is for a human eye, normal human eye, which we have already discussed earlier. The angle subtended is maximum. Now when the object is placed near the focal point of a converging lens, the lens forms a virtual upright and enlarged image. So if you can recall that if the object is between the focus and the optical center, so in that case a virtual enlarged upright image is obtained. So this is the condition that we have already studied, and that is how a magnified image is formed by a simple magnifying glass. This is the near point of a normal eye. Right? Okay, great. All right, so now a very important thing about any optical instrument is its magnification. Now coming to the angular magnification. Now how is angular magnification defined? As you can see, angular magnification, it is defined as m is equal to theta naught by, or theta by theta naught, which is equal to, theta is what? Theta is the angle when the lens is used, and theta naught is the angle when there is no lens, that is angle without the lens. Now the angular magnification is at the maximum when the image formed by the lens is at the near point of the eye. This near point, as already mentioned, is 25 centimeter for a human eye. Fine. Now when a single lens is used, it is possible to achieve angular magnification up to how much? We can achieve with a single lens, we can achieve a magnification up to about 4 without serious aberrations. You can have more than 4 also, but then there would be aberrations involved, so which is not desirable. Fine. But this is for single lens. Now if I use multiple lenses, then what I can do is I can have magnifications of up to about 20. Fine. So which is 5 times more than that of single lens. So this 20 is without any serious aberrations. So that's why you must have seen that in higher microscopes we normally have more than one lens. Fine. So the multiple lenses can correct for aberrations. So that is very useful. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, now the first microscope that we are going to cover here is a compound microscope, a very common one. Fine. So a compound microscope, it consists of two lenses. What are they? So they are basically, one is the objective, which is closer to the object, and the other that is near the eye is known as my eyepiece. Now what are the salient features of a compound microscope? So it gives greater magnification than a single lens, which is obvious. We know that compound microscope gives more magnification than a single lens. Now the objective lens has a short focal length. How short? It is usually less than 1 centimeter. So this objective lens has a focal length of less than 1 centimeter. Now what about the eyepiece? The ocular lens, which is also known as my eyepiece, has a focal length Fe of few centimeter. So this is more than that of the objective. Fine. Now this is the actual object whose image we are going to study or we are going to see. So what it does is, like, the objective treats this as the object, and then the image is formed here, and this image is kind of an object for the eyepiece, and finally my final image of the eyepiece that is made by the eyepiece is this. So the eyepiece lens forms an image here, which is highly magnified version of the original object. Fine. The objective lens forms an image here, which acts as an object, and then this is an image. Fine. Very clear. Okay, now summarizing the points for a compound microscope. So in a compound microscope, the lenses are separated by a distance L, and this L is much greater than either of the focal lengths, that is that of the objective as well as for the eyepiece. Now the approach is similar, like for both the lenses, and then the image formed by the first lens becomes the object for the second lens, that I have already mentioned, and the image seen by the eye2 is virtual, inverted, and very much enlarged. And this is a picture of a compound microscope that we normally use. So it is, the object is placed somewhere here, fine, and then it is observed through these lenses, fine, here, fine. Okay. Now coming to the very important point of magnification of compound microscope. So here we need to keep two things in mind. So first is the lateral magnification of the microscope. This is mainly associated with the objective. Now this lateral magnification ml is given by minus of L by f0. So using the normal magnification formula which we discussed for the lenses. Now the angular magnification of the eyepiece of the microscope is given by what? ME is equal to 25, which is the near point of the normal eye, divided by the focal length of the eyepiece. Fine. So these two are the lateral magnification and angular magnification. Now a combination of these two is the overall magnification of the microscope, which is the product of the individual magnification. So A is equal to ml into me. So this is equal to minus L 25 centimeter by f0 fe. Fine. This is the magnification of a compound microscope. Okay, now coming to the modern day microscopes. So the first microscope that comes to my mind is the transmission electron microscope, which is commonly known as TEM. Now this is a very powerful microscope. In fact, for any nanomaterial that you synthesize or any nanoparticle you synthesize, so this is indispensable. So a TEM, basically it consists of the following, you can say. So this is there we have a electron gun. So this is an electron microscope. So electron gun is here, and then here the sample is inserted, and in fact the sample is very small and in microns. So and then this is the total size of the TEM grid is around 2 to 3 mm in diameter, and then there it consists of various grids in which the sample is drop casted, and then once the not the laser beam, the electron beam passes through the sample, then it falls onto this. There is a camera in this part, and there is a fluorescent screen, so you can observe you can analyze the sample, and then from this camera you can also record this. So you can go up to say 1 nanometer down. That is the size you can determine using the transmission electron microscope. And in fact, I was very fortunate to have operated this instrument when I was in IIT Guwahati. And you'll be surprised to know that the cost of the second TEM that IIT Guwahati has bought was close to 7 crores. So that is huge in terms of this cost involved. And then and for more details on transmission electron microscope, I would suggest you to visit this link and then just read through the details that is given there. Fine? Okay, let's move ahead. Now coming to the second, another very important microscope is the field emission scanning electron microscope. So there it was transmission, now this is scanning. So this is a scanning electron microscope, and here the resolution is not that much as that of TEM, but still, like for nanomaterials, this is also a very important tool, and this is also a very expensive one. So but not as expensive as the TEM. And for more information on FESEM, we also have SEM, that is scanning electron microscope, but this is field emission scanning electron microscope. And for more details you can visit this link that I have put here. So you should read this, and I am sure this is going to give you a lot of interesting insights. Okay, now moving ahead. So the next optical instrument that we are going to discuss is the telescope. Now there are two main types of telescopes. Number one is the refracting telescope, and there is another one which is the reflecting telescope. Now refracting telescope uses a combination of lenses to form an image. Fine. So that is, it uses combination of lens similar to the microscope, but for reflecting telescope it uses a curved mirror and a lens to form an image. But basically telescopes can be analyzed by considering them to be two optical elements in a row. Fine, one objective and one eyepiece, and then the image of the first element becomes the object of the second element. In general, like in microscopes, our objective was smaller than the eyepiece, but in the case of telescopes, the objective is larger than the eyepiece. So these are small details that you need to understand. So now coming to how refracting telescopes work. So refracting telescopes, as already mentioned, they consist of two lenses. Now two lenses are arranged so that the objective forms a real inverted image of a distant object. So for telescopes, as we know that the object is of course very at a large distance, so that is why telescopes are used. The image is near the focal point of the eyepiece. So the image of the object is formed here through this objective lens, and this acts as this image acts as an object for the eyepiece, and finally the final image is formed for the eyepiece, which is here. Now the objective lens forms an image here. This is and the eyepiece lens forms an image at this particular point. Now the two lenses are separated by the distance f0 plus fe, that is focal length of the objective plus focal length of the eyepiece, which corresponds to the length of the tube of the telescope. The eyepiece forms an enlarged inverted image of the first image, that is the first image which was at a distance. So we are getting here an enlarged inverted image of the first image, fine, or the image. You can see this is the first image, so we are getting finally the final image is formed here. Okay, now as discussed earlier, like magnification is very important for any optical instrument, and the angular magnification, it depends on the focal length of the objective as well as the eyepiece. Now this M for the telescope is given by M is equal to theta by theta naught, which is equal to F naught by Fe. And we should remember that angular magnification is particularly important when the object is nearby. And next we also should note this point that very distant objects still appear as a small point of light. Okay, so this is for a normal refracting telescope. Okay, now the reflecting telescopes, I had mentioned that it consists of a curved mirror and all, and I leave that topic for you people as a self-study topic, but please don't ignore this part because this is very much part of your syllabus. So I leave it to you as a self-study topic. Fine? Okay. So now let's see some interesting piece of information, like for refracting telescopes, what is your idea of the largest telescope in the world? So the largest in the world is where? Is at Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, US. And how large it is? The diameter, not the length, the diameter of that refracting telescope is 1 meter. Fine. So this is the largest telescope, refracting telescope. Now for reflecting telescopes, the largest in the world are 10 meter diameter Keck telescopes on Mauna Kea in Hawaii. So it is in Hawaii Island, and this is the largest in the world, that is the reflecting telescope. It is of 10 meter diameter. Then next, the largest single mirror in US is 5 meter diameter instrument on Mount Palomar in California. Right? So this is the largest single mirror in US in 5 meter instrument on Mount Palomar in California. Right? US. Okay. Now a very common term associated with any optical instrument that you come across is resolution, right? So I'm sure you must have all heard about the term resolution. So what is this resolution? The resolution of an optical instrument is defined as the shortest distance between 2 points on a specimen that can still be distinguished by the observer or camera system as separate entities. So it is basically the shortest distance between 2 points on any particular object that can be distinguished by the observer as separate entities or separate points. Fine. Now if two sources of light are close together, they can be treated as non-coherent. So I'll show you some images which will make things more clearer. And because of diffraction, the images consist of bright central regions flanked by weaker bright and dark fringes. So these are the patterns that you usually get. Okay, let's move ahead. Now when we talk about resolution, another very important thing is that there is a limiting condition which is known as our Rayleigh's criterion. Now what is that Rayleigh criterion? If the two sources are separated so that their central maxima do not overlap, their images are said to be resolved. That is, two sources, they are separated so that their central maxima do not overlap. So then these two images or these two sources are said to be resolved. Fine. So this is the limiting condition for resolution, and this is known as my Rayleigh's criterion. Now when the central maximum of one image falls on the first minimum of another image, these images are said to be just resolved. Fine. They are just resolved, and the images are just resolved when their angular separation satisfies Rayleigh's criterion. Fine. So that is, so we'll see into some images where just resolved and not resolved, all these concepts will be clear to you. Okay. Okay, now resolution, and continuing with it, if viewed through a slit of width d, small d, and if we apply Rayleigh's criterion, now what is my limiting angle of resolution in this case? So it will be theta minimum is equal to lambda, that is the lambda wavelength of light, is theta mean is equal to lambda by d, and d is my slit of the width, width of the slit. Now for the images to be resolved, the angle subtended by the two sources at the slit must be greater than this theta mean. Fine. So in order to, for the images to be resolved, now if you see this, the sources are well separated and the patterns are resolved. You see, these two sources, they are well separated and their patterns are, we say that they are resolved. Both are different for these two. Fine. So these are my well resolved images. Now as I said earlier, so let's try to understand what this just resolved and not resolved means. Now in this case, in the first case, so this is the example of just resolved case. The sources are closer together and the patterns are just resolved. They are not that far from each other. So in this case, this is kind of almost the, you can say, the boundary case, and these are just resolved images. Fine. So these are very close. Now this, you see, this is the example of not resolved. So they are so close to each other, these two, that you cannot differentiate between the two. Fine. So the sources are so close together that their patterns are not resolved. So this, we cannot say that this is a resolved. Fine. So this is the example of just resolved and not resolved images. Fine. Okay. Okay. So next comes what? We also need to know that for circular apertures, how these limiting cases are. Fine. So the diffraction pattern of a circular aperture, what it consists of? It consists of a central circular bright region surrounded by progressively fainter regions, as we saw in the previous slides. Now the limiting angle of resolution depends on what? It depends on the diameter of the aperture. Fine. So this is given as theta mean is equal to 1.22 lambda by d. For now you can try to remember this. So this you will have to apply in the problems that I will be sending very soon. Okay. Now another very important thing is, important thing to note is the ability of an optical microscope to view an object depends on the size of the object relative to the wavelength of the light used to observe it. So it will all depend on various factors. So how small an object can you view? So that will depend on the relative wavelength of the light that you use to observe that object. Fine. Now for example, you cannot observe an atom which is, you say that D is much greater than 0.1 nanometer with visible light, that is which has a wavelength of greater than 500 nanometer. So these are certain things that you need to know. Fine. Okay, moving ahead. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this lecture, and I'm sure you must have understood by now how the optics it works, and how different optical instruments are used, and the main concepts associated with it. And in the next lecture what I'll do is I'll be starting with the wave optics part, in which I'll be covering firstly interference of waves. We'll be discussing the superposition principle, etc., and then we will move to diffraction, and that will be it. Like, we'll then discuss some small applications of optics, and then we'll move to the next unit. Fine. Okay, till then please take care. Okay, fine. Okay, bye.